Hey everybody, welcome back to Omens. This is episode 19. I'm your host Ryan, AM Air Pronouns, and today we're talking about the Seven of Wands. Okay, so yeah, if you've hung around for a while, or checked in or whatever, you notice that we're finally starting to slowly get through the wands. So yeah, we've only got, I don't know, about seven more to go. Alright, but anyway, alright, so the birds have learned to climb on the bookshelf, so you might end up seeing Gabriel up there trying to knock things off. I'm not sure where one of the candles went already. I'll have to look for it later. But yeah, they're a little less vocal, but a little more visible today, as you can see. Probably can see Bobby kind of poking his head around. Alright, but anyway, let's dive into it. So, Seven of Wands. Our first card we have here is the Seven of Rods from the Tarot of the Old Path. It's a dude in basically full-out Viking dress with a huge beard and mustache, holding one wand up, kind of across his neck, and then he's got like almost a fence of 6 more standing right in front of him. 5 of them are stuck in the ground, and then there's another one like running across them, kind of low. So it's a bit like a fence. So I'm going to use this card as we talk about the 7, the number 7. Yeah, you were getting noisy. Alright, so the number 7 is a symbol of the human body and of all its power. Its 7 main power centers, or chakras, as they're often known. Because if you think about it, our main chakras inside of our body, the main power centers there's 7 of them, from root to crown, basically from the end of your tailbone to the top of your head. There's other chakras. There's actually millions of them. There's little tiny ones all over your body. Those are just the 7 main centers, which also correspond to 7 nerve bundles, if I remember correctly. Like actual physical bundles of nerves in your body. So, if you think about that, so the reason, so we've got 7 chakras in our body, and what do we mostly use the chakras for in spiritualism or spiritual metaphysical stuff? We use those to enhance our spirituality. So they correspond to our body, and by enhancing not only our body, but also them, we enhance our spiritualness. So 7 is not only a physical number that corresponds to the body, but it also is a spiritual number. It's one of the main spiritual numbers. It's also a number of, so a continuation of that, it's one of the main teaching or learning numbers of practical philosophical experience, acquired through sacrifice as the means of indelible instruction, which is pretty much a straight-up quote from the numerology book I have. Maybe slightly paraphrased. I think it's slightly paraphrased. So what does that mean? Let's kind of break it down. So, number of practical philosophical experience. So if we think about philosophy, what's the first thing that comes to mind? You think probably the first thing you think is old bearded guys in togas sitting around on stoops or walking through streets of ancient Greece and just babbling on. Philosophy is broken down. I'm not going to go through the whole etymology of it. Basically means a love of wisdom, love of knowledge, love of wisdom. It was the foundation. It was kind of the foundation of a lot of science. Philosophy used to, in its original form, included basically what we now know as science. It's just they didn't necessarily have the tools to do the experiments to actually do the science. They just literally had to sit there and hypothesize and theorize. They couldn't necessarily do all the practical experiments they needed to because they didn't have the technology. Well, as technology caught up, science and philosophy slowly split. Things that were once under the umbrella of philosophy slowly went under the umbrella of science because we actually had the technology to do the practical experiments. But there's still many branches of philosophy that are still considered to be under philosophy, like ethics, morals, metaphysics, politics, even to a degree. It's anything. Slowly, we've gone out of the physical. Anything physical has gone from philosophy to science, but everything that's still kind of can't be explained under science still kind of falls under philosophy. So even spirituality is under a branch of philosophy. We could we could say that all of our discussions on what the spiritual nature of the world are technically fall under a branch of philosophy. So, practical philosophical experience is when, well, you go out and you actually experience something you've only talked about. Like, say you were given an ethics question. To take one from, or sort of one from one of my Wicca books is, well, a moral conundrum would be, you have a couple of friends who you really like who have an open relationship, even though they're also semi-exclusive. Well, they're a paired partnership, but they have an open relationship. But only one of them tends to take advantage of that, and you're really falling for the other one. And after a while, as you get closer to that one, and then you propose, that one tells you, "Oh, that's very sweet of you, but I'm actually not interested. The entire reason we have an open relationship was because my partner said if we didn't, he would leave me." Well, now you're kind of under a, well, there's your moral conundrum. So that's an example of a thought exercise, and that's not the whole exercise. I can't remember all of it off the top of my head, but that's a thought exercise. Now, practical philosophical experience would be you actually have that happen to you. So you're like, oh, this is no longer just a thought exercise. You guys broke it, really? So no longer just a thought exercise, this is happening in real time. So a practical philosophical experience is it's happening in real time. So 7 is kind of the number of that, the teaching or learning of that. And even that thought exercise would be kind of considered practical philosophy. So the teaching or learning of it. Acquired through sacrifice is the means of indelible instruction. That's a really fancy way of saying you worked for your instruction. Yeah, it's like you worked to actually learn something. You went to the classes, you talked to people, whatever. You actually went out and did the thing, and you sacrificed some of your own time to go learn these things. So that's kind of what the number 7. That's basically the number 7. It's both spirituality, learning through sacrifice, and it's a physical number. Always remember that it is a physical number. It's the highest physical numbers out of 9. Out of the primary 9 numbers, or the single-digit 9 numbers, 7 is the highest physical number. So that's our 7. Next up, we're going to talk about the fire. Because we've got wands that correspond to fire, so fire expressed through the 7 of Wands, and here we have my Tarot of the Gilded Path, which has seen better days. Ignore this white stuff, that's just it kind of torn off. We've got a really fancily looking dressed man, kind of Renaissance, or I'm assuming Renaissance, I'm not good with fashion, type clothes, standing in front of an cracked open doorway. Like the door is kind of partially shut, but he's standing in front of it, and he's holding one wand up, and he's got 7 others kind of all pointed towards him, and he's in a defensive posture. So the fire is expressed through the 7 of Wands. Best I can think of it would be kind of your sacrificial fire or your student's lamp. So a sacrificial fire, as in, you're going to sacrifice things on there to, whether to gain something, usually if there's a sacrifice involved, it's to gain something. So you're sacrificing food, papers, your own parts of yourself that you no longer really need. You're sacrificing that to gain something new. So the sacrificial fire, that I'm letting go of this so I can gain something else. Student's lamp, I actually kind of see that a lot more strongly with this one, is that, like I was saying with the 7, that someone who's sitting there dedicating themselves to study, staying up late hours, just going over their notes and their homework and whatnot, just to try to gain, to learn, to get better, to go forward. So that's kind of what the expression of fire I see through this 7 of Wands. Alright, so next up we have our celestial deck, so our first part of our astrology. And in the celestial deck we have a kind of a harp looking thing. It's actually a lyre, but it's kind of that, if you've ever heard of the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, which I'm sure most of us have, but he steals the golden harp, and it's his final near downfall. And so this harp, there's kind of a woman with wings, a armless woman with wings kind of as the main curvature of the harp, and then a single stick backwards, and then the strings are all sideways, unlike a regular harp, so instead of going up and vertically up and down, they're horizontal. So I guess that's supposed to be the difference between a lyre and a harp. I don't know if this one really... Just looks like they've got it drawn wrong. From what I know of lyres, even lyres, basically they're just really small, like U-shaped curves of a harp, and the strings are still vertical, not horizontal, like in here. So, not sure what they were thinking with this one. But she's just kind of flying through the air, and we've got... So in the Celestial, they have the 7 of Wands as the first deacon of Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. Sagittarius and Jupiter are... See, I can understand Sagittarius. So Sagittarius has to do with philosophy, exploration, wanting to learn more, wanting to go. It is a fiery nature, and it's that, hey, let's go experience, explore, do new things. They tend to be very broad-minded. Jupiter is also expansive, so Jupiter actually rules Sagittarius, so kind of what you think of with one, you can kind of think of with the other. The reason I think they associated this with the 7 of Wands, and this is why I'll give it to them, even though I wasn't gonna originally, but it just popped in my brain now, is Sagittarius has to do with philosophy. Sagittarius is actually kind of known as the philosopher. Jupiter is not only the expansive benefact and good luck and whatnot. Jupiter is also known as a teacher. Now, you'd think teacher would go with Saturn, but Saturn is actually more of a disciplinarian. Jupiter is a teacher that sits there and goes, oh, that's cool, that's a great idea. Why don't you expound on that, go explore that thing. Jupiter is the one that gives you that push to go learn more, experience more, go do more. Like, you've got this small little nugget of interest, well, go follow it. See where it leads you. See whether it dies out for you, or whether you suddenly come upon like some major branch of knowledge that you're really interested in. So I can see why they'd associate the 7 of Wands with Jupiter and Sagittarius, because that corresponds back to that number 7 of it being the learning, philosophical, spiritual teaching number. As we get more into this, you'll see why I think it's only kind of one part of it. It's kind of pushing just on one part of it, and that's what I've noticed with Celestial deck is they tend to expound upon one small section of the card's full meaning, and they don't tend to stick very closely to the original meaning. They kind of just like force it in there, like, oh yeah, we should probably put this in there. But anyway. So the constellation they have associated with this is Lyra, And Lyra is the constellation that is a representation of the Lyre of Orpheus, the very famous Greek poet and musician. Most of us probably know, and it'll jog your memory, he's the guy who went down to the underworld after his wife died on their wedding day because she fell into a pit of vipers and one of them bit her on the heel. And he was so upset. He sang such sad songs that everyone cried, and the gods finally told him, maybe go down to the underworld and ask Hades for your wife back. So he goes down there. He manages to basically sing his way past everyone because his singing actually causes very strong emotions. And he asks Hades and Persephone for his wife back, and they're like, no, she's dead. But he sings and kind of convinces them. I think Persephone ends up having to convince Hades more to bring his wife Eurydice back with him, of course, on the stipulation that he not look back at her until after they've both left the underworld. Now, this is where it kind of differs a little bit. Some say, some myths are like, well, he couldn't quite restrain him, so right before they reached the opening, he looked back to make sure because he was, very paranoid that maybe because he couldn't hear anything because she was a ghost, so there was no physical footstep sound, so he was, paranoid that maybe she wasn't there. So that tends to be the main, more often talked about ending. Another one I found is that he kind of, in his excitement to have her back, kind of forgot that both of them had to leave the underworld, so he stepped out, looked back, she hadn't left yet, and evaporated. But the reason his lyre ends up in the stars, and his lyre was actually given to him by Apollo, the god of music, god of the sun, god of music, inspiration and prophecy. And the lyre, Apollo's lyre, was actually created by Hermes as kind of a gift for stealing his cattle, Apollo's cattle. So the lyre's made quite a journey, but basically Orpheus was so sad, he went around the rest of his life just singing his grief, and eventually he came across the Maiads of Dionysus, and they were in their frenzy, and because of his grief, he didn't respect Dionysus correctly, so the Maiads, in a fit of rage and frenzy, because when they were having their Dionysian rituals, they went absolutely insane, is what it was, basically berserk. So they ended up tearing him apart, and his lyre either fell into a river and was there's two differing accounts. Either it was the Muses got a hold of it and brought it up to Zeus, and he placed it in the stars, or Zeus sent his eagle down to grab it and he placed both of them in the stars. And actually this constellation was known as either the Lyre by the Greeks, obviously. It was a lyre in the Celtic areas. In Arabia, in the Arabian areas, however, Middle Eastern areas, it was actually known as the falling eagle, or in one place it was the falling vulture. So this constellation has associations with both a lyre and an eagle or vulture. But yeah, so that's where that's kind of the mythology of the constellation is. Basically, it was Orpheus's, originally Hermes, then Apollo's, then Orpheus's lyre that Zeus set in the sky as a tribute to basically the greatest poet and musician all of mankind had ever seen. Which, I mean, he had a bit of a leg up on everybody, given the fact that, well, his father was a human king, his mother was the muse Calliope, Calliope, I think it's pronounced. So he had a bit of a leg up on everybody, so that's the only reason I swear. But anyway, so that's the constellation. Now, lyres as kind of a symbol, they have been used as ceremonial instruments since antiquity. I don't know how far back, it just tells me since ancient times. I'm like, well, that's very specific. Thank you for that. Sarcasm, very much. So basically used as ceremonial instruments. So lyres and harps in general have been used as ceremonial instruments, because have you ever heard a lyre or a harp? I mean, I mostly just heard harps, but goddamn, that music is really freaking good. There's a couple of twin sisters on YouTube that play harps, and they do all kinds of different songs, and damn, that two harps going at once, holy shit. They're really fucking good. I can't remember what they're called. Or what their channel's called. But yeah, so the lyres and harps have served as ceremonial instruments because they sound really fucking good. But one of their main uses for that is they're used as guides to the other world, or the underworld. So if you think, for example, shamanic journeying, as we call it, where you're traveling the underworld or the upworld, usually we just use drums, because, you know, that reminds us is the beat of Mother Earth type deal, the beat of the heart, the drums. It's very earthy sound. That is very useful for going down to the underworld, to even kind of joust around in the middle world. Hey, I've gone up on drum music to the upper world too, but I'm gonna have to see about using harp music to go into upper world, because that sounds like that seems a little bit more ethereal, upper world type deal. So they're used as musical guides to the other world in general. Celts considered them instruments of both the other world and enchantment, so more specifically the Fey realm. So, well, specifically the Fey realm type deal. They were associated with the good folk. They were also often buried by Celts, buried with their owners by Celts to help guide them to the other world, after death, the afterlife. Yeah. So, oh, and the more specific guides to the other world part was by the Norse. I actually put here as musical guides to the other world by Norse and dead Celts. Because, you know. But anyway, so that's kind of what the lyre is for. It's a spiritual guide. It's a musical spiritual guide. And like I said, the Celestial likes to kind of force in the original meaning. I honestly, I don't think they should have based this 100% off of the actual tarot, because they kind of just, they made their own deck and then assigned tarot meanings to it, is what I get the feeling with a lot of this. So, according to them, the task of the Seven of Wands is to reclaim the internal muse through the battle of everyday life. Yes, I could see that. I'd say there's a lot more to this that has to do with the lyre itself than with the, oh, you're going to battle your inner demons or outer demons or the rest of the world in order to keep up your creativity or spiritual or whatever. You could throw that, or you could. It's honestly a very specific message. That's what a lot of the Celestial has to do, is very, very specific, which is why I think it tends to not come out in my readings very often. These cards are very, very specific. Not a whole lot up for interpretation, and even when they are up for interpretation, I'd have to use them more along the lines of constellation cards as opposed to tarot, specifically. Yeah, so that's the celestial half of the astrology. The next part of the astrology, based off the Golden Dawn, or Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. I'm going to use my Black Cat Tarot, so, and there isn't, and it'll come clear why I decide to use this one pretty soon. So we've got a black cat kind of standing on hind legs on a low stone. He's surrounded by fallen wands and skulls and other cat skulls. And he's facing off against this pretty big-ass lion with a skull mask. It actually looks like the lion took the upper half of the skull of another lion without the jawbone, basically, and just strapped it over its own head as a mask. And it's kind of roaring, and yeah, there's a fight about to happen. Because that cat also has his ears back and is kind of snarling, or yowling, whatever it is cats do. So there's a definite defensive fight scene going on here. So, in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn astrology, the Seven of Wands represents Mars in Leo. Mars in the third decan of Leo, so the last decan of Leo, which is basically the last 10 of the 10 degrees. And the title for this card from the Golden Dawn is the Lord of Valor. So, these two parts, so Leo is Leo represents your creativity, recreation, and procreation. Leo is very much warmth, heart, just expansive, bold. The ego. It's the reason why it's the only. It's the reason why it's the only zodiac sign ruled by the sun, ruled by the actual sun, as opposed to most any of the other planets. It's warm. It's not very not as expansive as say Jupiter or Sagittarius, because it's a fixed sign, so it's all about staying in the one center and kind of radiating warmth outward and being very in the self area. It's like I am lord over my own in my own area type deal. And it also has to do with creativity as well. And then Mars is our energy, our aggression, our assertiveness, and even our self-defense. It's the warrior sign. And what was the thing? Oh, to tie it back to the number 7, Mars also in astrology represents the body. So if you look at your natal chart, where Mars is kind of tells you a little bit about your physical self. There's a bunch of other things that also need to be taken into account with it, but Mars will tell you a little bit about your physical self. And when Mars is transitioning through different signs, or different parts of your chart, it kind of like, this is what your body's probably going to be feeling a little bit like. So we've got Leo, which is the heart and expounded and just ego, and Mars, which is aggressive and energy. So Mars, the warrior, gives kind of Leo, the hero, the courage to fight for his heart's desire, is the line I was given. Or the line I wrote, borrowed, whatever. Plagiarized? Maybe plagiarized is the right word. Is it plagiarizing if I tell you that it came from somewhere and I didn't make it up? Okay, we're going to go with borrowed, because I think it's only plagiarizing if I try to say it's mine. So yeah, so Mars is our warrior, Leo is our, and we can see here, because this cat is standing her ground on this rock, so that's kind of your Leo. It's like, this is my area, myself, and I'm being attacked, so I'm going to defend myself. So the warrior Mars is going to take that power to kind of give me the strength to fight back against this adversity and defend my position. So that's our astrology of this card. It's the warrior Mars giving the hero of Leo the hero, the ability to stand his ground and defend her heart's desire. And just this 7 of Wands just makes that Usually in 7 of Wands, you don't see what the person is defending against, but here we've got, oh, there's a giant-ass lion that looks like it wants to eat you. And, hey, dead cat skulls all around says that's probably the case, and it looks like this is the last lone standing survivor, basically. So yeah, that's our astrology. Yeah, that's our astrology, so we've got both possibility of either Jupiter in Sagittarius in the first decan of Sagittarius, which is the first 10 degrees, or Mars in the last 10 degrees of Leo. Take your pick. I honestly, a lot of these, even though sometimes the celestial one is kind of narrow and doesn't quite fit with the actual tarot card, sometimes it does kind of, in a way, fit to a degree, so I like to take both of them. It's like whatever's coming out stronger is what I go with. Alright, so moving from our astrology to our Kabbalah, we have my vice versa tarot. So we've got here a dude in medieval warrior's garb, red and white with cloak, holding one stave, and they're standing on a small, a low rock, or a low boulder actually, with 6 other wands just kind of resting against it. And he's just kind of got his wand up and kind of a crossbody, like he's got a bit of a relaxed yet defensive posture. And then that side of it is just, we can see his back cloak, and it's night now, and there's fallen shields and helmets all around him, so he's kind of the last guy standing there, like in the Black Cat Tarot. It's like all his compatriots have been defeated or left, or he's defeated his foes, possibly. That's one of those intuitive things. Have you defeated your foes, or have your compatriots been defeated, and you're now alone? But we're gonna stick with our front side, so this side, it's very much. There's still kind of that feeling of. Honestly, I really want to go with the back side for this, or I've let it go too far. So, but anyway, we're actually gonna go. I'm gonna stop talking about this card and get to the actual Kabbalah. So the sevens are associated with the seventh sphere, the seventh Sephiroth Netzach, which means victory, which is the first in the Olam Yetzirah, or the realm of formation, which is the third realm down on the Tree of Life. It's like the second to last realm. So Netzach means victory, and it represents feeling, emotion, a flow of energy. It's associated with Venus and the top of the right hip. And so in the Tree of Life, it kind of also represents like a body. So you've got your head, starting point, your shoulders, your heart, and then you've got down to your hips, and then your feet. Hips, pelvis, feet, I guess, or groin, feet, because there's 3 of them. But anyway, so it's basically associated with the right hip, and then Netzach is also ruled by Venus, or it's associated very strongly with Venus. And we're not thinking so much Venus in Libra as we are Venus in Taurus, which is just abundance, overflow, love. Think the Empress in the tarot. And if you can't think of that, go back to the Empress episode on here. I kind of go in depth in that. It's just that overabundance of growth, prosperity, what have you, but more specifically with Netzach, it has to do with feeling, with emotion, with just the flow of life. It's not so much physical as it is emotional. We're more focused. Venus and Taurus to kind of give us an idea of what sort of Venus we're talking about, but Venus as associated with emotion as opposed to physical things. Yes, you're very nice, Jack. No, quit knocking my table around. The dog wants pets. But, so Netzach is just overabundance, just so much. And this is right when we're getting into the realm of formation, where we're taking those kind of, we started up with ideas, then we got our energy, and now we've got to our actually starting to make a plan type deal. So this is, Netzach is where that plan is really, okay, we're setting it in stone. We haven't actually started making anything yet, but we know we're starting to know what we want, is what Olam Yetzirah is. Down. No. That's my hand. I have a very needy dog. I don't know why. He was very needy. But yeah, so Netzach is... I think I'm missing some part in here. Oh, okay, so Netzach represented through the 7 of Wands, because Wands is our fire, right? Our passion, our fire. Netzach is kind of more Venus, which is earth and air, and it's also in Olam Yetzirah, which is more along the realm of water. It's actually associated with the Queens in Tarot, so kind of more water is what I think in formation. We're going down from, if we're taking this alchemy-wise, we're going from fire to air to water, and then the final is earth. So this is kind of wherever so we've got kind of almost all 4 elements together, but they're being expressed first and foremost through fire in the 7 of Wands. So this is kind of Oh, the other thing I forgot about Netzach is that actually kind of makes a bit more sense. Every relationship, creative project, and undertaking is energized by Netzach. This is, like I said, where we start actually like, okay, let's do this. We've been thinking about it, tossing ideas back and forth. Let's actually do this. It's time to actually do it. That energy. So we're associated through the fire, and how the Tarot in the Tree of Life book explained it. She likes to think of it as kind of that quirky person who's very much, I'm going to do what I want to do. If I want to paint my nails green, dye my hair red, and do full-on glitter makeup while going to work my job as a barista, I'm going to do it, and you can shut the fuck up. It's that kind of energy of, that's the Mars and Leo energy of, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want, and you're going to shut up. She even pointed out something I hadn't noticed before in the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot. And if y'all have that, take a glance at it when you get a chance. In the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot deck, the person standing on top of the boulder has one boot and one shoe. So one of their feet is clad in a boot, kind of like these, which goes up to about mid-calf or so. And the other one is in that old-fashioned Renaissance-style shoe where it's at the ankle, and then the flaps are kind of... I'm sitting here gesturing at my feet like you can see my feet. I just realized I was doing that. So basically one of them is a mid-calf high boot, and the other one's that medieval style, Renaissance style shoe where it's just the flat shoe with kind of a pointed toe and the flaps at the ankle that are just kind of curled out and over. And it's basically, and so her interpretation of that is, this is someone who is just like, now I'm going to do what I want to do. Yes, we know you're very much 7 of Wands, Bobby. Bobby's like, that's me. So, basically someone who's like, I'm going to be quirky, and I'm going to be fun, and you're going to have to fucking deal with it. Like, back off. This is basically the energy of Netzach in the 7 of Wands is, back off, I'm going to do my own thing. As long as it's not hurting anyone, you guys can just back off. I'm going to sit here and listen to punk while wearing floral Lolita type. I don't know, what's the most odd word? Lolita style dress, I guess, is the most odd 2 things I could put together. Well, not really. Punk kind of Lolita kind of falls in punk, but unless, of course, you're doing like actual... Actually, speaking of Lolita fashion, that actually is a very good example. So, when we think Lolita fashion, especially here in Western countries, hey! Guys! I'm talking. So, in Lolita fashion, it's that really cutesy, frilly, short dresses, big bonnets, fluffy bows, ribbons, like, girliest girly girl type deal you can think of, kind of baby cutesy. Melanie Martinez kind of has sort of a baby doll / Lolita look. So, basically something like that, like in her music videos. So here in Western society, unfortunately, especially the name actually comes from a book written a couple centuries ago that was basically about a guy who was, I haven't read the book itself, but from what my understanding of it is, the guy was basically almost just on that side of pedophile. I don't think it actually went quite that far. He was just fascinated with this young girl and just like, whose name was Lolita. And the whole fashion thing is just something, it's kind of more baby doll fashion. But basically, they two got associated together. So in Western culture, we tend to associate that with a very specific, I guess, fetish, a sexual fetish. However, the origination of Lolita fashion, specifically from Japan, because that's where it got its start. Now, of course, we're thinking Japanese, we're like, yeah, they kind of fetishize everything. Not this. Lolita fashion was actually created as a way for women to fight back against their over-sexualization and claim their own womanhood, to be their own femaleness that didn't need man, because apparently in Japan, I don't know if it's still true of, or if it was ever true of everyone, but it was the more sexually attractive woman was someone who was more demure, lighter floral type deal, not overly girly, but not very not extremely masculine, but not overly girly. That was their sex. So that was their attraction level, basically. So this overly girly, frilly bows, ribbons, bonnets, and all that, that was a major turnoff for a lot of Japanese men. They hated it. So women actually created that style as a way to claim their own femininity, claim their own power, and get men to back the fuck off. Which, that is, to tie this back around, that's something I could very strongly see associated with the Seven of Wands. That is almost exemplary of it. This, I'm gonna do something which is gonna freak you out, and I'm doing it for my own power, and you can just back the fuck off. Hi, Gabe. He's up there climbing on my shelves. Quit trying to knock that crystal down. Honestly. But yeah, so that's the Kabbalah. That's Netzach in the Seven of Wands, expressed through the Seven of Wands. Is just that I'm gonna go all out, and you guys can just fucking deal with it. Now, there was a caveat in the book that it was the type that wasn't hurting other people, which, I mean, we should all strive for. Like, just because our quirks are something we enjoy, the healthy expression of those quirks is if they're not hurting other people. So, for example, this Netzach doesn't cover... well, in its healthy expression, I'd assume it'd probably be in its unhealthy expression. Doesn't cover something like, I'm gonna throw a trigger warning in here. 6. Somebody who's probably doing rape porn for their own amusement, or, well, no. Somebody goes out of their way to actually cause harm to others by, like, you know what, this is my fantasy and you're gonna deal with it, and it's like, no, you need consent. That needs to not harm. They're actually causing harm to another person to do that. Like, no, I really, really want to build this tower, and this is the only place to do it. Well, this is kind of sacred land. It doesn't matter. It's my dream, my thing. Sorry. Alright, sorry about that. I had a slight interruption of a crazy mutt. Alright, we're back. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna say that basically wraps up the Kabbalah. So our next part, the last of the Kabbalah, basically, sort of, is the Kabbalistic angel. And this is Angel 29, Reiel, the Expected God. They are one of the dominions. Their psalm, for those who do psalmic magic, is 54:6. And their realm of power is they protect against the impious and enemies of religion, delivers from enemies both visible and invisible, rules over religious sentiment, divine philosophy, and meditation. So again, we have that 7 aspect of religion, philosophy, and spirituality coming through. And then the 7 of Wands, specific of defense against enemies, type deals. This one just gets a little bit more specific of defense against enemies of spirituality and religion. Those born under Reiel are distinguished by their virtue and zeal to propagate truth, and they will make every effort to destroy impiety with their words and actions. So, yay, fun. Reiel is the sole guardian of those born from 9:20 to 9:40 a.m., physical guardian of those born from August 7th to 11th, and the moral guardian of those born January 30th, April 17th, June 28th, September 8th, and November 19th. So, kind of a specific, small, little set, not as much to go into as with other angels have been. Alright, so the being from my Halloween tarot associated with the Seven of Wands is the Mummy. Which I went, okay, what? So, so first off, the first thing to make, that's pretty obvious, is mummies were actually, mummification was done as a thing of, as a ritual of religious significance. Get out of the books. Honestly, you think you'd know better. So as a ritual for religious significance. So mummification was a way to preserve the body for the afterlife. Because, more specifically, majority of places this happened, like, on purpose, was in ancient Egypt. So, in their spiritual understanding of the world, basically, your body and all your possessions, the spirit of them, or the actual, their spirit and their actual physical thing was so closely intertwined that to have the spirit of something, you needed the physical object. So, to have your spirit continue on to the afterlife and be well put up in the afterlife after you went through the ceremony of, basically the ceremony of judgment, their judgment ceremony on the undead, you need all those physical objects in your tomb. So poor people, not a whole lot of stuff, but rich people, you know, your pyramids and shit, they'd just be full of stuff, because obviously they'd need that stuff in the afterlife, so the only way to access that stuff was to actually put the physical object in there, including their body. That was the only way their spirit could continue to exist in the afterlife, was if their body was still in existence. So that was what mummification was for. So that pretty obviously ties into the whole spiritual significance of the Seven of Wands, and the Seven. However, defense-wise, since the Seven of Wands tends to, as we've slowly seen, there's definitely an element of defense to the meaning of the Seven of Wands. Not much of one that I can see with mummies. Maybe because of the way they were sealed up in tombs, everything would be put together in such a way as to keep things contained and close. So you get a little bit of defense, but I don't know, being-wise, the mummy, or a mummy, I don't know. So the process of mummification was deliberate and layered. They did it to ensure that all... What? No. Somebody wanted to give me information. And no, it wasn't the bird, even though he definitely is trying to. So anyway, mummies being... I just forgot everything you said.
Defense.
Yes, defense. So possessions not only were a way of defending, but also sometimes they would also be buried with other people, their servants, their guards, and whatnot, to protect them in the afterlife. So, take it while you will. I'm running low on time, so. Anyway, alright, so that's kind of the being associated with it. So to wrap this all up, we'll go with the traditional meanings of the upright and inversed, and I have my Archeon Tarot here, which is not a person, but a very fancy building with the Seven Wands basically being a wrought iron gate in front of it. So we've definitely got a lot of defense right there. Spiritually wise, the building itself could, just from its architecture, could in fact be some, I'd say an Asian temple. Can't quite see it through the thing, but it looks like an Asian temple. So upright, the keywords associated with it are defensive belief and ideals. Calm is needed to overcome obstacles. Slight elevation of status. Hold if truth is on your side. So basically, if this card falls upright in reading, it's like if you're in the right, if truth is on your side, then you'll be able to overcome these obstacles in front of you. You'll be able to defend your position, or you need to defend your position, depending on where it falls in a reading. It's like you either need to, or you will be able to, or you'll eventually, or you have had to do this. Basically, hold defense, like hold your own. As we've seen in so many of these cards, the person holding the defense is on a slightly elevated rock, so they're slightly above their opposition. They're not very far above, so it's not full like I'm way up and better than you, but it's I've got the high ground, like just the high ground. Gabriel, quit trying to eat that angel. God damn it, bird. Yeah, so it's definitely defense and of belief and ideals, as we've seen. The 7 is very strongly associated with spirituality, so is fire. Fire actually represents the spirit in elemental associations. So, again, this is very, very spiritually focused card. Reversed, feeling overwhelmed, not sure if this is the right place to actually make a stand, just exhausted in general, like been holding your own for so long, been holding your position for so long, it's like, is this even worth it anymore? Is there anything else I can do? Just kind of a general feeling of exhaustion, and like, maybe depending on where it comes up, do you maybe need to rethink, is this the hill you really want to die on? Is this an accurate hill to die on, like, type deal? Because you probably might end up dying in this case. If it comes up reversed, it's like, maybe the truth isn't on your side. Maybe you're trying to defend something that isn't actually worth defending or worth your defense. Maybe this coming obstacle is too big for you to overcome. Maybe it's going to crush you beneath its weight. So maybe your better course of action would be to try to get out of the way, as opposed to trying to stand up against it, because you're probably going to fail. Or if it's like in a past position, you have failed, you haven't been able to defend something, there's probably regret around it, of not being able to have defended what you thought you should have, or you defended something and it just exhausted you utterly, and was it really worth it? So that's kind of your basic meanings, your traditional meanings for the 7 of Wands. And, of course, all the parts into it, so go forth and enjoy, hopefully, some new understandings of this card. Yeah, that's all I got on 7 Wands. I'm gonna get out of here. Y'all have a lovely rest of your whatever. Find me, like, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube. Find me on Facebook at Bags and Omens. If you got questions, or you want to see about getting a reading from me, email me at bagsandomens@gmail.com. And if you really like me, or if you absolutely hate me, I'll take that too. Support me on Patreon. I'll take that too. Yeah, it's patreon.com/bagsandomens. I'll have all the links down below in the description. And yeah, have a good rest of your whatever. See y'all next Sunday with Aquarius and whatever else comes up. Bye.